Hey YouTube, this is just a quick one on the Project Action Tracker. Now this is such a simple tool, so simple in fact that I know quite a lot of project managers that feel quite comfortable overlooking it completely. The problem with that is, as projects increase in complexity, keeping track of all of your little bits and pieces becomes harder. The more complex your project, and actually having simple tools like this can really help. Now, there are quite a lot of tools that you may already have access to. Things like little sticky notes, for example, the virtual sticky notes that you can have in most operating systems, even voice notes. And these all work, but most of the time, people like me, we just use Excel. Of course, most companies have a license for Excel, and even if you don't, we can do the same thing in things like the Google spreadsheet. Now, as with most things, you can engineer this to do anything. If you're into automation, you can easily use the action tracker to update project schedules or vice versa. You have to remember that your job is as a project manager. You really should avoid over-engineering this. Just remember that 1960s US naval principle, KISS, keep it simple, stupid. All you really need to capture is some kind of reference. Now, this is optional, but it can help with cross-tracking things later on. The actual action, the owner of the action, the due date, delivered date, and then again, optional, but some kind of priority. We also tend to use a field for updates so that we can explain what is happening with this particular action, especially useful for any delays. And then the status, open, closed, hold, etc. Now, for those of you that work on programs or multiple projects, or projects with large and complex information flows, then you might also want to record a way of identifying the project, the customer, the project stream, etc. So why do we use an action tracker? We mainly use action trackers to keep an eye on the activities that people promise to do for us, or to track things that we've promised to do for others. We may use different formats which have more or less information for internal customers versus external customers. For example, we may use an internal action tracker that might detail tasks to be completed by individuals, whereas an external action tracker might detail deliverables by business unit or business partner. Now, I've used the term deliverable, but deliverables can vary in size. Major deliverables will be recorded in your project schedule, but there are many minor deliverables that are equally important, are far too detailed for the project schedule. In the real world, I would keep a couple of templates available to me based on the usual types of projects I need to track. Those templates act as simple starting points for ensuring my project startup activities are covered off before growing to track the actual actions that will be identified as a project matures. Can I remember all of these actions without an action tracker? Sometimes. Depends on the size of the project. But I tend to work in a team, and whilst I take ownership for a number of projects and prospects, there are other people that can pick things up when I go on vacation, for example. So having that action tracker helps them know what I'm working on, what I've got problems with, what is due today, what is due tomorrow, etc, etc, etc. Additionally, I quite often find I'm working on multiple projects, and sometimes, unfortunately, they can ramp up unexpectedly. Worse still, multiple projects can ramp up at the same time. So having an action tracker helps make sure I don't forget the promises I made to other people or that they made to me. So what can you use to track your actions? I've worked with companies that use SharePoint, and that is a great shared working space that you can use for a number of project documents. I've worked with companies that have a site for each project, and more recently I've been working with companies that use Teams to keep their documents organized. I've seen some companies that use Microsoft Access, and it is an awesome tool. I especially like the way that we can use keys to link multiple documents together. There are a lot of drawbacks with Access. One, building it can be quite time intensive, although once you've built one, you can easily replicate it for other projects. But sharing Microsoft Access isn't always that easy, and scaling it becomes difficult after a period of time. One of the biggest companies I work with use something called Oracle Apex, which is a fantastic system. If you already have Oracle in your workspace, you probably already have the license in, then using Apex to build web front ends for your Oracle data allows you to build an interface that suits your project management needs, ensures tracking, and keeps your data secure. The one I've personally used most often, and I would recommend to anyone else, is Excel or another spreadsheet. It's probably the simplest and easiest tool. Now you can engineer a spreadsheet to do pretty much anything. And the nice thing about Excel is you can start by just typing things in cells, you can add new rows and new columns as required, and you can build up your complexity. It allows you to grow as your projects become more challenging, or the amount of detail you need to capture in those documents increases. You can just level up your Excel skills. And as a result, this is my go-to for pretty much most documents, to be perfectly honest. Now, of course, there are custom apps and CRMs and ERPs and service management tools that can be used to produce action trackers. And there are some tools that will have an action tracker in there. If you are licensed for those, just use them. Having something is better than having nothing. If you're already in a squeeze and you just know anything about Microsoft Excel or spreadsheets, just grab Excel or a spreadsheet application and start building. Well, thank you for watching YouTube, and if you do have any questions, hit me up in the comments below and I will happily help.